Okay, we're back for another segment of this Hutzel Farmer Tech MS660 build. I've got the crankcases all cleaned up, knocked the seals out, pressed the bearings out, pressed the bearings back in, cleaned everything up, cleaned the bearings that were in it, cleaned them up. They're nice and smooth. I'm confident I got everything out of the bearings, so I'm just going to reuse them. I've taken and pulled the two case halves together with the gasket in it. The bearings are seated. What I'm going to do here is just make sure that the center line of the inner race of the bearing is square to each other, so that when we install the crank and pull the two case halves together, the crank is actually setting square inside the two bearing races and not cocked one way or the other, which could possibly cause premature failure of the crank or the bearings. Albeit it's not going to be a whole lot if they are out of square. But again, this is just something that I like to do. What I've got here is just an inside mic. Some people call them snap gauges. That's not really what they are, but it's just a cheap set that I acquired from Harbor Freight for a few dollars. And I'm using Harbor Freight's digital vernier caliper. Again, we're not doing heart surgery here, so it doesn't have to be spot on, exact on the money. I'm just trying to get it as close as I can. So what you do is you take your inside mic here, and I'm going to measure the front, the back, the top, and the bottom of the inner bearing race. I'm going to see how close we are to being square. So you just release it, and you get it up on the, easier said than done, but you get it on the inner bearing race. Well, there we go. It's probably going to be hard to show this, but I'm right on that inner bearing race on both sides. And then just lock it down, and it'll hold its distance. Zero caliper out. $33. About 33.23. So remember 33.23. We'll do it again. We'll push it together. This time I'm going to do the front. I've done roughly 3 o'clock on the back, so I'm going to do roughly 9 o'clock on the front of the inner bearing race. Lock it down. Again, just zeroed out. $33.24 is what I've got. So, front to back of the saw, the inner bearing race is almost perfectly square to each other, side to side, on both front and back. So that means that our crank center line isn't going to be shifted to the front or the back on one side or the other, which could put lateral force on that side of the crankshaft and cause premature bearing failure or crank failure. So I'm not going to prolong this. I'm going to do the top and then the bottom, but that's just another step in the saw building process that I take, is making sure that the bearings are square to each other inside of the crankshaft, or excuse me, inside of the crankcase. Thus, I'm hopefully preventing premature bearing failure or crank failure. See you in the next video.